Hello, I'm Adam Wren.
And I'm Jake Traylor. It's Friday, June 13th.
And this is the Playbook podcast. And Jake, I think that date explains a lot. Here are the topics driving the day, and there are significant conflicts unfolding at home and abroad as we come to you this morning. The first big thing driving the conversation in Washington today comes from the Middle East. Overnight, Israel launched a preemptive attack targeting dozens of sites in Iran as part of a major strike at Iran's nuclear program. In a speech after the first wave of the attacks were launched, Israeli PM Benjamin Netanyahu said that the offensive, quote, struck at the heart of Iran's nuclear enrichment program, as well as its weaponization program, its enrichment facility, its ballistic missile program, and leading Iranian nuclear scientists. State TV in Iran reported that among those killed in the attacks was the commander-in-chief of Iran's Revolutionary Guard, as well as the deputy commander of Iran's armed forces. Netanyahu said that the, quote, operation will continue for as many days as it takes to remove this threat, end quote. So you can be sure that this is going to be the topic of conversation in official Washington today and for many days beyond, with much of it centering around a few key questions. What will the U.S. do? The statement that we saw last night from Secretary of State Marco Rubio made a point of gently distancing the U.S. from the attack, saying that Israel took unilateral action against Iran and that we are not involved in strikes against Iran, and our top priority is protecting American forces in the region, while warning that Iran should not target U.S. interests or personnel. Jake, President Trump has a meeting of the National Security Council today at 11 a.m. in the Situation Room. What are you hearing from your White House sources?
Yeah, I think what's notable here is the way that response came out last night. Typically, as soon as an event, this seismic global issue, potential war in the Middle East is taking place, normally the first thing that we're going to see is a statement from Donald Trump. A lot of his color and the normal way that he would assess a situation. Notably here, the first statement to come out came from Marco Rubio, and that was to declare definitively that this was a unilateral decision made by Israel, not by the United States. Look, we know that Netanyahu and Trump spoke on Monday. I think the question right now on every single White House reporter's mind, especially as we head into the White House today, is how much involvement did Donald Trump have in this decision? We know that behind closed doors and also publicly, he has really argued against there being any type of militant war in the Middle East. The question now is, how much did Donald Trump push back against Netanyahu? If he did push back a lot and Netanyahu still went through with it, what does that say about their relationship? And so there's just still a lot of questions as to how much involvement Donald Trump has. That Rubio statement, though, telling us this was ultimately a unilateral decision by Israel in this attack.
Jake, you know this. You've been to more than 300 Trump rallies over the last couple of years. Even into his presidency, he's pointing to the wars going on overseas. He's presented himself in a dovish fashion, and he said that these wars would not happen when he's in the White House. He's in the White House now, and Israel, one of the allies that he is putatively closest to, has kicked off what could become a major international conflict among other international conflicts unfolding as well that Trump has struggled to tamp down, including what's happening between Russia and Ukraine, which he said would end on day one. How do you think the MAGA faithful, the people that you talk to at these rallies over months and years, how would they have thought of Trump handling this now back then when you were talking to them? Would they be surprised by any of this?
They'd be incredibly surprised, Adam. And that's because talking to these folks, thousands, day in and day out, they take Donald Trump at his word. And some of the things they love the most about him is how much authority he took when it came to world issues, saying, I will end every war on day one. I think they really did take him at his word, or at least believe that that was a little exaggerative, but it'd be done in the first week. That's clearly not what we're seeing here. And I think that really elevates the kind of potential MAGA schism that we're seeing right now, which is, I don't think many folks in the far right camp expected to be here because Donald Trump said we wouldn't be here. But obviously, here we are.
Well, that's insightful stuff, Jake, on a topic that is heavy and that will be unfolding. And for the latest on that, you can visit Politico.com on this fast-moving story as the day unfolds. Well, as if this news fire hose hasn't been enough already, all of that came just hours after a really extraordinary moment on Thursday when Senator Alex Padilla, the Democrat from California, was forcibly removed from a press conference held by DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, and he was briefly handcuffed, violently sort of shoved to the ground by law enforcement officers. This really sent a ripple across Capitol Hill in a way that we haven't seen in a long time. Senate Republicans are among those criticizing this action. Dems are kind of quick to note, as Padilla himself did, if the administration does this to a senator, what would they do to just everyday folks? We know that we have protests coming up this weekend with the No Kings protests. So that's a question out there looming. But really, this also quickly succumbed to the partisan divide, Jake, where you had Mike Johnson calling for Padilla to be censured, Derek Van Orden saying that Padilla assaulted people who were defending a member of the president's cabinet. Do you think a red line was crossed here, Jake?
I think our political colleagues got this so right in their story. They said that this is the latest symbol of an overheated political system approaching its boiling point. Padilla really made the media rounds on Thursday night. Democrats' rallying cry was, if this can happen to Padilla, this can happen to anybody. I was talking to some officials about this earlier, asking, is this the look that you guys want here? Obviously, this wasn't orchestrated by the administration, this takedown of Padilla, but they're doubling down, saying Padilla should be investigated, really trying to put the onus on Padilla here, saying that he was in the wrong. And you're seeing Democrats line up in strict opposition to that. Democrats rallied around this message of this is a metaphor for the greater landscape of what's happening right now in Los Angeles. The White House doubled down, saying this is unnecessary attention grabbing that the Democrats are using to try and distract from what's really going on. So I think it's a classic fighting fire with fire. And I think the White House here doesn't relent until Democratic senators and Congresspeople do as well.
And we should note here that Secretary Kristi Noem did give an audience to Padilla after all this transpired. They spoke for about 15 minutes, according to a spokesperson for Noem. So a relationship was established. They did exchange phone numbers. But Jake, this story isn't going anywhere. And I'm struck by the fact that it's all unfolding just a day or so before protests unfold in cities across the nation. How is the Trump White House viewing these protests? We heard Trump respond yesterday to this idea undergirding this weekend's protest that he's a king-like figure.
Yeah, the landscape right now, and obviously throw in what's going on in the Middle East, there's a lot of news happening right now. We have the Senator Padilla situation going down as the LA protests continue. They're happening globally. And then all that leading up to this Saturday military parade that's also taking place. The split screen of this is truly pretty wild. But I think what the White House really wants right now is for focus to be off of these protests, off of what's happening in California. I don't know if necessarily the military parade is the right solution for that, because that comes with its own slew of controversy and questioning of authoritarian references. But it's clear right now is that they don't want this to be the focus. They certainly don't want more and more attention on what's going on in California this week.
Jake, this was great. Thank you for joining us on such a newsy morning. And that's all for today's Playbook podcast. We have much more news and analysis in today's Playbook newsletter, which you can find at politico.com/playbook. The podcast will be back Monday. Have a great weekend.